Welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. We've completed more than 30 now and look forward to many more. This is part 4 with our beloved B. Welcome.
Thank you, Nora.
So, the workshop,
The workshop.
Jean and these people, can you give us some insights into that work?
Well, the workshop, of course, there were many phases of the workshop, different people, Jean in the beginning, but when I came, it was pretty much Jack who was, doing it, and Michael Tate,
Ah,
the workshop. And
that's before he became one of the coordinators,
you
Michael
mean-
Tate.
Yeah, well, Michael Tate, yeah, well, he eventually moved over into, administrative
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. Yeah, yeah. No, he was in the
Oh,
workshop there.
Workshop.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much there. He did a lot, and then we of course John also had his time there, and we can't skip our friend over in America there, who worked there for so many years, who was a genius, but his name is, it'll come in a second.
Yeah, a genius.
Well, yeah, he was a mechanical genius, actually. He
Oh.
built a house in Four Comers, way ahead of its time, with biogas, solar, everything. Ed,
Of course, Ed,
Ed
yes.
Giordano.
Yes, I remember.
Ed, and
I've met him in California, actually.
yeah. So Ed,
Hmm.
he did some wonderful things there because, when he was in school, when he was in high school, he built his own car. I mean, this guy just,
Oh my gosh.
from the, and now he's still working in construction. He does mason work, carpentry, plumbing, electrical. He never is out of work, and he doesn't even have a contractor's license or anything. People, just by word of mouth, he's overwhelmed with all the jobs because people know he can do it all. And actually, when I was back in California for a bit, a friend of mine was, really stuck with this job in her house, and he had this fireplace, and it needed masonry, and needed all this stuff. And I just called Ed up, and I said, "Look, this woman's got all this, and you think you could help her?" And he went there, he did that job. She thanked me every time I met this woman. Oh, Ed is the most wonderful, So he did really a lot. And
What kind of work was done in the...
well, in the workshop, of course, we had to do everything, that we needed for the structure. We had to prepare it, and of course, all the ramps were made there. Also, the crane. So the crane, Piero designed himself, He designed it, and then he brought the plans, and that was during the troubled times when Matramandir was shut down by the police. We had the Section 144 was on Matramandir, because the society people were trying to come, and we were blocking them, and they were calling the police. So at that time, they shut Matramandir, and they put the ring of bayoneted policemen around there. And just to go in and turn off the water, the guy's chasing me with the bayonet. And I said, "The tank's overflowing, the tank's overflowing." And the guy, "Oh, yeah, he didn't need to stick the bayonet in me. He let me turn off the..." But that cooled down gradually. But we kept going in the workshop, working on the crane.
Oh,
So we built the crane during that period, because you couldn't go you were too conspicuous out there on the... And some people think the construction of Matramandir stopped. Never stopped. And there was not a single day that somebody wasn't working. And under Section 144, no 3 people can be together. See, because it's the Anti-Riot Act.
Yes.
So if 3 people are seen together, then the police come and, everybody has to run. But we worked in the workshop, and, one guy's here, and we kept it going. And of course, that Section 144, it was imposed like for 30 days, but they kept renewing it. It went on for months. But the police couldn't maintain their presence I mean, I guess they had other things to do. So, eventually it ended up with, 3 or 4 policemen sitting in one of the sheds there playing cards. And then, of course, then we crept in and, life went back to normal.
I remember when I was asked to go to Chennai to meet the fellow who might give us concrete, cement.
Uh-huh.
And I went, and we had a great talk about tennis. He loved tennis, and I loved tennis. And he came down and played with Yusuf and beat everyone in Oroville.
Wow.
And you remember Yusuf very
well. Yusuf,
maybe
I can
you
never
tell
forget
some stories about Yusuf.
Oh, but see, Yusuf was also another one of those extremely special. Yusuf is the only person I ever met in my life, I tell you, who didn't have an attachment to money. And that he could give you money, see, because he was in the Portus, and he was the one signing, he and Alain Bernard, were running the Portus. But Yusuf was the kind of the treasurer. And you would go there to get money for this or that, or whatever it was. He would give you the money, and he wasn't like doing you a favor. You go in any bank in the world, and the teller's doing you a favor to give you money. You can feel that vibration. They look at your thing, and all that. I mean, he had that such a beautiful way of dealing with money, which is, really hard. Yes. And he did not, he had that. That was, I think, one of his most wonderful qualities that I appreciated every time I was doing. He had that really soft, yes, gentle way and detachment. And of course, I was with him in Delhi because we were up there with Kirit Joshi trying to get the Oroville Act together, and so he was running up and down. I think that's what did him in. See, those long trips to Delhi on the train, yeah, back and forth, and then he got sick, and that was I think that was the thing that was so hard for him to do. But he always maintained that incredibly friendly spirit, Yes. It was so nice to be with him. And of course we had some very good times in Delhi, with Kirit. There are 100 stories about those things. I mean, because Kirit, of course was, he was a remarkable being, of course, as everybody knows. And that guy, I never saw anybody in my life, it had the dedication that he had, and the work, the amount of work the guy could do. I mean, he never rested. And he would work. He took all his office work, from the government office home, and going through all those files while we were having our meetings, and while he was watching these TV dramas on the TV, the old Hindi serials, but he's going and doing, and then when he was in the office, he was doing all this Oroville work. He arranged all these things. I went up there for the Center for Scientific Research, the CSR that we started, mm-hmm, and I had to get the tax exemption and register it, and he set up all those things, all those meetings and everything. I mean, and we got the 100% tax exemption. Those were really, really hard to get, and we got everything without bribes. And Sanjeev was also there. Sanjeev had been working on the case, and he started helping with SAIER to set up SAIER. Mm-hmm. And we came back to the community, and we were at one meeting, and we got denounced for selling out to the government. We sold Oroville to the government because of CSR and SAIER. These two institutions are, pillars of Oroville now.
Sure. And
out of them has come all the schools. Out of the CSR has come all these architects who started there. All have their own units. And Earth Institute and all of Tensi's work, all that stuff. It all started back then, and that's all Kirit.
Yeah.
And
we had planned to do a long series with him.
Yeah.
And then he had lung problems, cough, then he broke his hip, and after that he went quickly.
Yeah.
I used to visit him. He loved Shally.
Oh.
He loved Shally so much. I wanted to ask you about the discs.
The
because-
discs. Well, I didn't work so much on the discs. I mean, that was that we put up some early ones to try it out. And the thing was that we have that salty air.
Yes.
So the salt will corrode the gold. So some of them they're turning black and they're corroding. So they did all that research, of which I was not a part, in which because you had the gold leaf that the Swiss guy, what was his name? Ulrich. Isn't it Ulrich? Is it Ulrich? Yeah.
Ulrich.
Yeah, I think Ulrich. He was the expert in that,
Oh.
And then to put the two pieces of glass, top and bottom, over the gold leaf,
Right.
and then to bake each little tile. You see, because they had the glass factory there, they had the ovens there. They made all the 2.3 million tiles. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing, all on site, all with the talent that came from here.
Yeah.
And now they're making jewelry. They're doing all kinds. I mean, that technology spawned a whole industry.
Yeah.
But those little tiles, I mean, that's a huge work that I wasn't a part of. I left after working at Matramandir, after we did the ramp, after we did some other things. I was mostly at CSR. We started CSR with Tensi.
Well, I'd like to get into that now because that's
Well,
that's one of the cornerstones of Oroville.
Well, yeah, CSR. I mean, it was. I was complaining to the people in some of those offices there. We have to have this legal body to receive grants and to do all our renewable energy systems.
Sure.
And I kept pushing for it, and everybody said, "Well, you're so excited about this. You should do it. You do it." Because the people making the windmills and Tensi doing his biogas, they were doing their thing. They didn't want to do any administrative work. And to register CSR, I made up the name. What happened was, we had this lawyer up in Chennai. He was a friend of Frederick's. I can't remember his name now. But he said, "Oh yeah, I'll register this thing for you." The CSR, I did. We didn't have a name. He said it was 6,000 rupees. And of course, 6,000 rupees was a lot of money. Nobody had any money.
In those days?
In those
Wow.
days. And I said, well, I checked on this. You can register this thing for, I think the fee is 65 rupees. And he says, oh, yeah, of course. But then, I have to pay these men. We have to pay the bribes. We have to do all that. And he said, if you want to register it, you can register it. You can just go to Tindibaum and register it. So I did. I got a ride on a motorbike from Uli. We went up there, and I went in there, and of course they pushed you around from office to office, and they said you couldn't use this name because that's a prescribed word. I wanted international in there. I wanted some other words, but finally we could get Center for Scientific Research, got through all the hurdles, and we didn't pay a single thing except the 65 rupees.
Oh my God.
And of course, then they made you come back the next day and pick it up and all those little things they do. But then we had it for 65, and even I couldn't get the 65 rupees from the office there in Oroville. They said, no, that's something, we'll do it later. We don't have the money for that kind of stuff.
Oh.
And so then I asked Cyril, Cyril Shokin, another pillar of Oroville. Cyril, I said, we need 65 rupees to register this. Oh yeah, sure. She gave me the money just like that, Then of course we had to go to Delhi to get the tax exemption all that for CSR. And we started down there, that little plot of land, bought the land, that little piece of land, and started. And Tensi was doing the biogas in his backyard, over there in center field, making some tanks and stuff out of ferrocement. But then we started with a little building there. Now if you go there, this building goes up like many floors, and little ferrocement walls were made. That first little office was down there. And and we planted, there's some little trees around there, some little, Caia senegalensis, the African mahogany. You go there now, huge trees are there. Yeah. It was right in the beginning of the 80s. And then And then what we did was I wrote this. I had to write the what do they call it? Not the preamble. They call it not the mandate. They have a word for this for the constitution of that association. So I'm writing this thing. So I thought I'd better put in a lot of things because we never know what we're going to do. So I put in health and healing, making movies. I just wrote this huge thing, and that all got registered. So later we were able to build Quiet. It was a healing center using using CSR and the tax exemption to build Quiet. And also we built the visitor center, and all of these things were actually started in CSR.
And got through because of all the things you put in.
Because we had all that. We were covered legally, and we had the tax exemption for the money if we could get some donations. Well, we got a lot of money from different governments. See, we got money from the British government. The ODA it was called, Overseas Development Agency. There was a man, I can't think of his name right now, who worked for the UN, and he came to Oroville when it was starting, and he made some proposals, and he talked with Roger, and they told him, no, we don't like your plans, and he went away. But then he retired. He was a town planner and a builder, and he built, and a really nice guy. And then he came back, and he said, well, can I help you with something? And then we said, well, we need some money for the CSR, to do some research and development stuff. And he said, yeah, I'll go to the ODA for you. And this guy was, in his 80s. And Dempsey knows him really. I wish I could remember his name. But anyway, he went there, and the ODA had their offices up in Scotland, and he would just go up and knock on the door, and he would say, look, I sent in this proposal for these people in India, to do this thing, and and it wasn't huge amounts of money, and they would say, oh yeah, we're looking into it, and then we'll take care of it, but of course they wouldn't do anything. He'd come back in 2 weeks. And, oh yeah, he'd come back the next 2 weeks. Just to get him out of there, they gave all the money for everything. He just had that persistence. He got us all these grants. And then once we got those grants and we got that thing set up so that we could make those ferrocement tanks really easily because we had a couple German engineers there. We had another Uli, who was a German. He had this little needle to vibrate it so it's gas tight, because the Roorkee Institute in India tried to make them and they failed. They couldn't get them gas tight. So once the government found it, then the government gave us money. And then they wanted, Indian government, then they wanted those tanks for Andaman Nicobar Islands for their generating electricity. So they wanted these biogas plants because they had all that biomass there. So they could throw all that stuff into the biogas, get the methane, run the diesel engines that ran the turbines to make the biogas, to make the electricity. So we shipped all these to the Andaman. So we got really going, Tensei really got going on that at that time. So CSR really...
that was bringing in income.
That brought in income, and that brought in expansion, that brought in other projects. Recognition. Also then they got into waste treatment and all of these things. It all started with the biogas. And now they're not even doing biogas. They're all out into waste treatment and things. And those beautiful things we made for curing the biogas tanks, they're not doing. I don't know. I don't think they're making. But it spun off also into roof bolts. These little we call them channels that you make on a mud mold on the ground, and you built all these buildings with those. You have this. You can just make it on the ground, lift it on the building. You need 2 walls. You just lift all it, and then it's round like this, so it's self. Then you just put a layer of waste brick and stuff and rubble, and plaster it, and you got a flat roof. So that whole CSR is built like that, And then houses all over Oroville were used that. Even in the visitor center, we use the earth, but we use because earth for roofs is too heavy normally. There are some domes there, but also in the hallways are these roof channels. Those channels. So those channels ended up all over Oroville. Also, they ended up all over India, because people came there and they saw them, and some people were in Rajasthan. And they saw this whole village, and they're all these ferrocement channel roofs. And so they said, well, where did that come from? Oh, this guy said, went down to South India and they were making them, and I just took down. I had a paper I just took down, and then we came up here, and it really worked. And now, the technology spreads. You get something good, you do it. So CSR, I mean, it just blossomed. And it's still blossoming. Many things have all those.
Have they worked on solar energy?
They promoted it, and what we did? We got all these solar cookers, because what happened in India, they had a scheme for solar cookers, which they subsidized them, and you only had to pay, I think it was like 300 rupees for this thing. It was worth probably 4,000 or 5,000, with the glass and metal box, and they put them in the villages, but they all broke. Because the glass, people threw rocks at them. Once they break, nobody fixed them. So we were getting all these from the villages and from the government agency that was trying to do it. So we started fixing them and distributing them to Orvillians, because this was perfect for the kind of the middle class market. But poor people wanted their little fire, and if it's a cloudy or rainy day and they can't cook, they're very unhappy. So then we made smokeless chulas, these cookers. Potter designed, and Ray, from Pondy, and some of the other
Golden Bridge.
Yeah, Golden Bridge. They designed these things. So these ceramic cookers give you, like 5 times the amount of heat than an open fire. And then you can have a 2-pot thing, and you put 1 pot here, and it's warming while the other's cooking, and you use half the firewood, and really, really nice things. So those they really loved in the village. So we promoted those for a while. Now I'm away from that. I don't know what's happening now, but Village Action and all these people and other people have made these kind of rocket stoves, that they use in Sadhana Forest. It's a technique where it's a kind of a high built fire, and it really is very efficient. So those are.
What do you see as the future of petrol and diesel-free vehicles?
No,
Because Oroville is, to me, the motorcycles are just a menace, practically. I have a difficulty with that.
Yeah, me too. So I've had an electric for the last 10 years, and we started. We got a great start with Akash and Sukrit making those first vehicles, and actually I have one of the classic ones now that Chris had rebuilt from the 20 years ago when they started making them, But they could never compete with the market. And but all the companies in India that started making these electric bikes and electric things, they all went broke. Because keeping up with the spares, the maintenance, and the laws changing and all of that. But now, there are companies quite established. Ampere is there. There's several that are making good bikes. Hero and some of these, there's now, and we have Govindaraj, who grew up in Oroville and was educated by Matthias and went through Altex and all that. He's an expert in these bikes, and you have Punaswami's son, also who makes these bikes. So, and then Min now has done this integrated transport service where they have the bicycles that you can. Electric bicycles that are so it has a bright future. And also we had this connection with Mahindra for the electric cars and everything. It was a little controversial because people said, oh, you can't deal with these corporates, they just want to use Oroville. That's nonsense. We have to collaborate.
Which Mahindra is this? One who lives here?
No, I talk about Mahindra Corporation.
Oh, corporation.
That makes the cars.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole fleet of electric cars. They came here.
Oh.
They came here. We had an open house. The president of the company came from Mumbai or Delhi, and it had a big press conference. It was in the news. It was on TV. But some Orvillians saw this, and they didn't like it. And they gave Min a lot of flack for doing this. But I thought it was fantastic because the corporates need a place to show that these things work. And they wanted Oroville to help them, with their kind of pilot studies, and in exchange they would give vehicles and all of this. And so I don't know how far it has gone, but there are electric cars. The Rewa company, that made those first little electric cars, it seems they've gone into hard times, and you can still get one or one like it, but they, like tripled the price or something. So those other first ones, it's interesting how that pattern goes. In India, you get these people who can pioneer something, but they can't sustain it.
Mm.
It's like the story of the windmills, that famous story of the windmills. That guy researched for 30 years all over the world to get the perfect windmill. And then he took it and put it in the villages, and it failed. From the National Aeronautic Laboratory in Bangalore. And that guy, almost destroyed his life, He had put his whole life into these things, and then they were all failing because there were certain things with the washers and the maintenance. It was the maintenance thing. And they were all sent back to Bangalore, and that's how Oroville got all these windmills, because the guy said, if you guys can fix these things, you can have them.
Whoa.
So we got our first, 20 windmills from this guy, and out of the 20 we made 15. And you have Robbie there, Swiss technician, puts Teflon washers in instead of leather, and then the feathering out of the wind, and then so they built this new Oroville windmill, and it was a huge success. And the guy was so happy. And then now that windmill has gone back out into India. And we had at one time, we had about over 30 windmills in Oroville. But of course now, because we have submersible solar pumps, most people are using those.
Jan was involved in this, I believe. Jan Imhoff.
Yeah.
He was involved in the
He's
solar
involved. There's
windmills. Yeah.
Windmills and the biogas. See, biogas has a huge potential, but now we were started into biogas and we have stopped. Because biogas is so essential in waste treatment conditions. Where you need to have the biogas to take care of so much of the biodegradable waste, and can be easily done, and we can build the biogas plants here. I think that's going to revive. That's going to come back. Biogas will come back because it's and you see compost toilets. Oroville never really got going on compost toilets. We built the first, in the nursery, we built one of the very first, the Admiral Rutledge Tompkins Memorial Toilet.
Yes.
He gave us $75, which was a lot of money in those days, to build a compost toilet. And we built a very beautiful one, with brick walls and a sink inside, had everything, and a big throne, because it was a Swedish method.
Oh, yes,
It had
I
the
remember
long
that.
chute.
Yes.
And then you had to put the steel bars in, and a place to drain the urine. It had everything. This thing worked perfectly. And then at the end of the chain, you've got this wonderful compost. But the whole thing failed for one reason: the cockroach.
No.
The cockroach, got in. It has a cover, but somehow the cockroaches got in. And because it's this long system inside,
They multiplied.
They multiply like mad. And then what happened, you see, people wouldn't use it because you go there and you sit on the toilet. The cockroaches are running around under there, and you can hear them waiting for the contribution, waiting for dinner. And people freaked. They couldn't do it. I mean, it didn't bother me, but then, the cockroach. I've got a compost toilet now, in my house, and it works fantastic. It's just and it's got a basket inside. Just take the basket out. I dump it in with food waste, and I have a wonderful compost system. I mean, it's very simple, very easy, hardly any maintenance, and anybody could do it.
Fantastic.
But we haven't got it on a wide scale. People still using flush toilets, wasting all that water, using septic tanks. Because even septic tanks, they have to take the sludge out.
Yeah, sure.
But that sludge you could put in a biogas, see? And get methane. You don't have to waste it.
Yes.
So actually, we're working on a new theory. I don't know if we want to go into that. But a Korean professor has a vision for the world, turning, I call it shit to gold. Because You poop in a high-tech toilet, you get on your phone app, you get credit. That toilet makes methane and compost.
Oh,
It's like an airline toilet. It's a vacuum suck. So
okay.
then you don't have to worry about smell or any
Yeah.
problem. Sucks it out, and then you get credit for it. And that credit is a global currency, and you can trade it worldwide. So he's working on that now. This guy's been working on this for years, and they want to use Oroville as a pilot project to study that. So we're doing the research today. These days,
Whoa.
that's what I've been working on these last
I
days.
see.
We just did a presentation for the community, mixed reactions,
Mm.
but it has huge potential. And even if we don't use their exact system, it really impacts Oroville's economy, because Oroville's economy is not sustainable. We're still in the old debit capitalist story. You know, we haven't broken free yet. And sharing, gift economy, all these things, alternative. We have the Aura, alternative currency, but I just demonetized it. It was worth, one Aura was worth 100 rupees. See, much better than $1 or a euro. But nobody wanted to use it. Only a couple places used it. But it's still the old system in a way.
Sure.
But still, it was our paper printed in Oroville with the urn and the banyan tree on it, and it just break people's mindsets that you don't have to use government currencies, which everybody said are going to fail. I mean, the International Monetary Fund, any day now.
Could be.
Already you see what happens in India, you know, with suddenly we lost our 500 rupee notes, suddenly,
Yeah.
you know, things
Yeah.
could go any minute. And the dollar, you know, is just paper.
Yeah.
No more gold, no more nothing.
Not based on gold
No,
anymore.
no.